Alright guys, we are going to take a quick look at the Octane Hostage Pro containment rest. One thing I want to do right fast is just to let you know that I'm a huge fan of this arrow rest. This is honestly one of my personal favorites, and for good reason. I consider it to be one of the most innovative and honestly one of the most effective arrow rests to ever really cross my path. And it really just comes down to how they're designed. I mean, if you look at it, first of all, this is the Pro model, so it's all really nice machined aluminum. It's well built, it's good and sturdy. So, but even just not even thinking about that for a second, if you just look at what actually happens with the containment of the arrow, your arrow just sits in it, and the fletchings pass through without making any kind of contact. I think that's brilliant, because really there's two different sides of arrow rest in the argument. You got your dropaways and the people that like those because there's zero fletching contact, but that's one of the big benefits. But there's also moving parts, and they can be a little harder to tune. And then you got people that like containment rest, which is more of the side that I'm on. That's mostly because there's no moving parts; they're easier to tune. But there's the downside of some of them, like the Whisker Biscuit, for instance, which has a full containment of brushes. It still holds the arrow as good, but the fletchings actually have to make contact with those brushes on a Whisker Biscuit. So, and that's the most famous containment rest. So in this case, you have the benefit of a drop away, which is the zero fletching contact, but you don't have the moving parts to worry about. And also you have the benefit of a Whisker Biscuit, which is the containment and the easy tuning, and pretty well overall just sit there and do its job, minus the fletching contact issue. So if that was a concern about the Whisker Biscuit, it's gone. If you see, it's super easy. You just knock your arrow. Your arrow will be cock fletch up in this case, and when you shoot, they will just pass right through the openings there. There's no fletching contacts, nothing to warp your vanes, nothing to slow you down. I can't see a much better idea than that. Personally, it works fantastic. This is one of the first rests I ever really used, and I love it. The only real complaint or bad review or negative thing I've ever seen pop up about them was that sometimes we would run into situations where people were saying that their brushes were burning up. Mostly the bottom brush, they were wearing out fast, or it was just giving them problems like that. And honestly, it was usually not really the brush's fault, because with normal shooting, if the bow is properly tuned, it doesn't do that. I've seen, like, the one I've had it for, wow, eight plus years, and it's been shot to death. And there has been wear, but nothing significant. And usually when those situations popped up, it was because like the arrow that was being used had like a collar on it, like a bulldog collar, just a little thing on the back that would cause friction between the arrow and the brushes when they shot. So every time they shot, it was like it was sending sandpaper over it, and it was burning them up quick. Almost every time we heard about it, that was the problem. But in the cases of just small wear and light wear that pops up in time, that's to be expected with any kind of brush that's used in a rest, just from the friction. But if that happens, it's mostly the bottom brush that guides the arrow out. So if your bottom brush is wearing a little bit, you can actually take all these screws out, which loosens up your brush. You can take the brush itself out and rotate them. So you would move your bottom brush here, this brush here, and this red one down here, and you've effectively rotated your brushes, giving you a fresh one on the bottom and starting over. It doesn't come up much, but it can be done if you need to. Now this is the Pro model, like I said, and compared to the original Hostage, just the obvious quick glance, has definitely stepped it up a little bit. So this was a composite, this is a machined aluminum. This one doesn't have very much adjustment to it. It's got enough, like if you're just wanting something easy. But this has a lot of adjustment. It makes it so much easier to tune. You've got elevation, you've got windage, everything that you'd ever really need to just jump in it and go. And like I said, no moving parts, so containment rest already are not all that hard to tune, so having this much adjustment just makes life even better, especially if you're planning on maybe bouncing this rest to another bow at some point or something like that. So in my opinion, they're hard to beat. Even down to just how they look. I love black and red. It's been the color scheme I've done on my bow for since the beginning, and I say that all the time, but just the small addition of the two red brushes, look at it, it just changes it. It gives it a lot of character. So that's pretty well how I feel about it. I love this arrow rest. I think it works great. I've never had, I've sold these to countless thousands of people over the years that I've been doing this, and I have never really had any problem with it. Now, it's an arrow rest in pretty much any archery part. It comes down to personal preferences and shooter preferences, and you very well may decide at some point that something like this is for you, or you may decide that you would prefer a drop away. There's really no wrong answer. It's just what you feel comfortable with. And for me personally, this is it. So wanted to give you guys a look at it one more time. That's the Octane Hostage Pro. I highly recommend it to anybody, new shooters, seasoned shooters alike. Check them out. It's definitely worth a look, and you know, it never hurts that they look pretty awesome to boot.